Your life is what you make of it. Learn, live, love. This is Nadia's Entrepreneurial Corner.
Everybody, how's it going? I hope you're not too starving out there. I know you're probably all thinking about your menu items like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry. It's all good. I totally relate. I'm getting hungry myself. So we are going to talk a little bit about social influence, what it means to be an influencer. But first, I'm going to do a really quick intro. I don't have any epic video intro with like really cool animations about myself, so I'm just going to quickly tell you a bit of background. So I'm the CEO and founder of a full-service global marketing agency, Alter New Media. We support clients from across every vertical. Our main areas of service are social media, influencer marketing, and PR. And I also have an in-house influencer division, meaning we represent influencers as talent within our board. We pitch them for brand collaborations and all of that type of thing. And I also have an Instagram growth and management service called Instagram Rockstar. We've supported over 200 brands in under 2 years, which isn't too shabby in my opinion. So the first question I have for you guys, who here considers themselves an influencer? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I see some hands, but they like went down really quickly. It's like there was definitely some trepidation there. You guys are probably thinking, oh, well, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm an influencer, but my following isn't so great, so maybe I'm not an influencer. But chances are all of you guys in here are an influencer, so you're going to find out why in just a little bit. So people ask me, like, oh, so you're an influencer, right? And I'm like, well, yes, but I like to tell people that before I'm anything else, I'm human first. I have my unique fallibilities, my unique weaknesses and strengths. I get like really crazy when I don't have my first cup of coffee in the morning. I am a night owl and I want to be a morning person. I have my unique struggles and so on and so forth. So I always like to tell people I'm human first. We're all humans before anything else. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in just kind of like this artificial self-presentation, if you will. So it's really necessary to remember that before anything else, we are human, guys. And yes, that was a really dramatic picture of myself. And second to that, I am a social entrepreneur. So if people were to say, yeah, so you're an influencer, I'm like, okay, human first, social entrepreneur second. And I say I'm a social entrepreneur because I place purpose ahead of profit always. Now I know there's a big emphasis on profit in this room, but in my opinion, you will never get fully where you need to go without thinking first about impact and about driving forward with a really unique and strong why. So my marketing agency, Alter New Media, we are very much a purposeful agency because of the fact that we offer in-kind partnerships with nonprofit. We do a lot of things surrounding social impact. So for me, I self-describe as a social entrepreneur, not just an entrepreneur. So, okay, fine, I am an influencer. But, you know, again, that is not the first and foremost thing that I say. And I think a lot of people out there who self-describe as influencers, part of the problem is that's all they consider themselves to be. It's like, okay, so you just woke up one morning, you're like, okay, I'm an influencer. I have no expertise or anything. I'm just an influencer. Like, that is obviously not going to get you very far in your journey, right? So I am an influencer, but those other two components, among other areas, are what kind of precede that. So yes, I do have a social media following. Technically speaking, I am a micro influencer. So if we're going to be looking at influencer tiers, you have your nano influencers who have around 1,000 to 10,000 followers. Then you have your micro-influencers who have anywhere from 10,000, 50K followers, and then you have your macro-influencers who go all the way up to 500,000 followers, and then you have all the way up to celebrity influencers, your Kylie Jenners, your Kendalls, your, oh my God, how many Kardashians do I have to name? All of them, among other celebrities. Sometimes even celebrity influencer might have fewer followers than a macro influencer who just kind of like were in the come up of influencer, if that makes sense. So yeah, okay, so I have followers, yay, great. But again, there's a lot more to being an influencer than just having a big following. And when I have people who come to my agency for marketing, whether they want to be an influencer themselves or they're looking to grow their Instagram following or another area of their social media, they're so fixated on followers, but they don't think about all of the other key areas that are so crucial to being an influencer. So to understand the power of being an influencer, you have to first understand what it means to have social influence. So who here in here understands social influence as it relates to like the textbook definition? Anybody? We have one hand, you're awesome. Kind of a little bit, all good. So obviously that's what being a social influencer is, right? No, not so much, but kind of. So according to Wiki, social influence refers to the way in which individuals change their behavior to meet the demands of a social environment. And of course, the social environment can vary all the time depending on your circumstances. So in this vein, I love the Mean Girls. I was like, oh my God, so perfect. Traditionally, the three areas of social influence are conformity, compliance, and obedience. That sounds like really totalitarian, right? Like, man, influencer marketing is kind of scary. And Wiki obviously knows everything, right? I mean, duh, like I'm gonna do my academic papers and just source Wikipedia and get an A+ on every single one of them. No. But it's not totally wrong at the same time. So I want to share an example. Who here knows Emily Weiss and the brand Glossier? Probably some, oh my gosh. The fact that a Gen Z knows who that is, but no one else raised their hand in the room is pretty awesome. Go you, high five. So Emily Weiss, she originally started a blog called Into the Gloss, and it was a beauty blog. And she did this while she was interning for, I think it was Vogue. And when she launched the blog, she had no intention of building a business after. She wasn't like, I'm gonna launch this blog and I'm going to use this blog as a launch pad or an impetus for launching a big company. But she was surprisingly successful with her blog. In fact, so successful that she realized, oh my gosh, like I have the opportunity to build a business because of this. And because of her success with this blog, she then moved to cosmetics and she launched the company Glossier. She did have to raise some capital for that, but because she had such a huge following because of providing so much value through her blog, she was able to do that. And within 4 years, Glossier reached over $1 billion valuation. And that is thanks to social influence, because obviously the people that were involved in her blog, they got very excited by all of the information that she was offering. She did a lot of activities to engage her community, but without the negativity of the social influence definition that we pulled earlier from Wiki. She did it by being a real influencer, and she leveraged guerrilla marketing techniques that are often set aside for very pricey strategies. So going back to what I was discussing earlier with people coming to my agency being like, okay, we need to go from 0 to 100,000 followers. Sometimes I'll have people hit us up and literally they'll send a message that says 10K question mark. I'm like, 10K what? They're like 10K followers in a month. I'm like, where are you at now? Like 500. Let me think about that. No, not happening, sorry. But it could happen, but just not within the time frame that they wanted. I mean, it took her about a couple years, I want to say, with Into the Gloss to amass this big following that then led to her moving forward with her business venture. But again, she was extremely successful with that venture. And now, I mean, it's just crazy because of the number of followers that continue to amass. But, you know, again, you have to think about the fact that you have to build a community oftentimes first. And you can't just go from zero to mega influencer or a mega business. It's just not how it works. So then, what makes a real influencer? If we're going to use this whole framework of real influencer versus faux influencer and thinking about kind of the positive impacts that Emily had with her blog as it relates to her business venture Glossier, we're going to talk about having expertise, brand authority, and empathy. These are really the three key tenets to being a real influencer. It doesn't matter if you're nano, micro, or macro, or celebrity, the truest influencers possess these qualities. We have a very select number of influencers that we have signed on our influencer board. Every single day we get influencers who apply to be serviced by our agency. And of course, we act as a real talent agency to these influencers. We do not charge them any money. We actually represent them. So kind of like an old school talent agency would, we pitch these influencers for brand collaborations, or we pair them with brands that come to us for collaborations. But, you know, if someone were to come to us with, say, 500,000 followers, but there's no kind of why or reason why they have those followers, number one, of course, it gives off a red flag. Maybe they've purchased those followers. Or maybe they are just really hot, just keeping it real, like they look great. And they're just posting selfie after selfie after selfie. And there's only so many duck lip pictures in a row that I can take. And I think that, you know, it's just like, this is not providing value. Like maybe for some of your target audience it is, but, you know, as it relates to being able to pitch you for brand collaborations, it's just like, you're just like anybody else. You're just like the actor that went into the talent agency who was just like everybody else, or just trying so hard to conform to everybody else because they thought that's what they had to do to be taken seriously. Before I was an entrepreneur, I was an actor. I moved to LA in 2006 at 19 years old to pursue an entertainment career. I signed a 3-year contract as a model and actor, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do forever. I'm passionate about this. I'm going to be successful. I moved from a small town in Western Maryland that most of you probably have no idea what it is. Anyone? Shout out to anybody who knows where Hagerstown, Maryland is.
I've been there.
Oh my God, Prime Outlets?
Mack Truck.
Mack Truck, even better. So it's like when I came out there, I mean, that's a huge move. It's 3,000 miles. Like back then, you know, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. But at the same time, at that time, I wasn't in touch with those few things that I kind of referenced in the beginning. I wasn't in touch fully with my humanity. I wasn't fully in touch with my why. I just knew that I had to be successful, just like so many of these young women especially know in their mind, or they think they know, that they have to be successful. So they just start producing en masse these like ducklet pictures or like random things, or I had to actually reprimand an influencer on our board because she was posting promo after promo after promo after promo. And at that point, what is that? And this actually relates to small business owners too. It doesn't matter if you're an influencer, if you're a small business owner, and you're really trying to curate your content. If every single one of your pieces of content is a promotion and you're not in some other way trying to provide value, that word again, it's going to be a problem, because at that point you're exploiting your audience. You're using your audience for your own gain. It's really important that you provide impact and that you are in touch with why you're even creating content to begin with. It has to be more than just monetizing for the sake of monetizing. It can't only be those things. So trusting someone's expertise without any experience is like trusting this guy to handle your dental care. Now, full disclaimer, I was trying to use some like really cool slide share type of activity, and it didn't quite work. So this picture was actually, it was a GIF of the doctor, the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors. Who remembers that movie? One of my favorites. So he was like drilling in the teeth. So obviously, like, who would go see him to do your teeth unless you're a masochist, which I know some of you might be. It's okay. Conversation for another day. There's children in here. So you wouldn't, right? So you have to make sure that you have expertise. That goes back to those 3 pillars of influence. You need to have the expertise, you need to have the empathy, and you need to have the brand authority. You can't, again, just go off and like, I'm an influencer, or I'm gonna like start a business just because. I mean, of course, I'm not trying to say that you can't move forward with your passion, but you have to do your homework and you have to be kind of self-aware, right? So how do you grow your expertise? This is going to connect to whether you are trying to be an influencer as it relates to Instagram or YouTube, but also as it relates to being a business owner. Obviously, you need to make every effort to expand your knowledge without getting stuck in learning mode. Now, I am a member of more Facebook groups than I want to be a member of, which I need to go through and not delete Facebook friends, but delete Facebook group membership, because sometimes the notifications are like, oh my God, I can't with this. So I see some people, which there's a couple people in particular that I see, and I've kind of given friendly advice to, but they don't listen, bless their hearts, you can only do what you can do. And they literally have, like there was this one kid, and I think he had like in his like education section in Facebook, like 10 like learning modules. There was like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, like how many thought leaders do you need to go through before you think you know something? At some point you have to trust yourself. That said, when you're going forward with self-education, and you could say this connects to, say, like the news. You don't want to just gather all of your news from biased news sources, right? You have to go out and do your research, do your due diligence to see what is the real deal, what is really happening out there. So that is the same for when you're trying to grow your business expertise, or you're trying to just become a thought leader actually like in a substantiated way, not just through like, okay, I'm just gonna go through this learning module. I need to go to like, what is it? Unleash the Power, like for the 10th time, like whatever the Tony Robbins like speech is. I don't know, you guys, like you cannot just be stuck in learning mode, it's unproductive. And you have to know and perfect your secret sauce in your industry. So you have the knowledge, but what is your USP? What is your unique selling proposition? This does go for individual influencers too. So when I'm talking about influencers, I want you to remember that regardless of what you do, you can be an influencer. It doesn't, like, the word influencer has of course been co-opted to mean something else entirely than what it is, because to be an influencer is to influence. It is to have the expertise and the brand authority and the empathy. But to do that, you know, you really have to have your USP. So when we're working with influencers specifically, or people who self-describe just as influencers, we want to make sure that they have a USP. Like, what is your niche? What's special about you, other than the fact that you're attractive and you have 50,000 followers or 500,000 followers, like you and how many other people? Like, I'm gonna look at my watch here. No, so very important to note. And if you're struggling, going to the small business owners in the room, not just the people who self-describe as influencers, if you're struggling to lock new customers, which I get this a lot, I have people who come to me and they're like, oh my God, like I'm just getting started. How do I get new customers? How do I get new leads? I don't know what to do. I actually did a marketing workshop not too long ago at a General Assembly out in LA, which is where I'm based. And about 3 or 4 people were like, well, I'm just launching my new business. I'm not 100% sure how to move forward. What do I do? I'm like, well, have you thought of reaching out? And this goes back to the fact that I self-describe as being purpose forward. I'm a social entrepreneur, not just an entrepreneur. So I'm like, why don't you consider offering in-kind services to nonprofits? Why don't you reach out to people in your community and see how you can collaborate so you can start to acquire those testimonials that you need? right? Versus just like waiting around for a new customer, waiting around for a new opportunity. Similarly, influencers, again, specifically people who self-describe as influencers, they're like, I can't lock any brand collaborations. Like, I don't know, like, how do I get Revlon to pay me? I mean, I don't get it. Like, this influencer over here did. And I said, okay, like, have you actually started to collaborate with up-and-coming brands and doing like in-kind? Which I know, like, obviously we all want to make money, but we all have to start from some place, right? I did plenty of in-kind offers before moving into paid work. And I'm not saying you should just like slave yourself away, but if you are just getting started, you know, you don't have like a long Dead Sea Scrolls length list of like attributes that kind of validate what you're trying to price yourself at. You have to have some measure of success, and one way to do that is to collaborate with your community, collaborate with up-and-coming brands, collaborate with nonprofits. So, but now remember, so it goes back to those 3 pillars. I'm going to keep repeating it. Influencer equals empathy, brand authority, and expertise. So without expertise, without brand authority, your expertise is like a flat soda. So people are going to only reluctantly consume your expertise if you don't have brand authority. Because, the last speaker said it the best. It's like, if you don't, you could have all of the logic, all of the intellectual background to substantiate what you're doing, but it's like if no one really knows who you are, that guy over to the left who has done a really great marketing and brand campaign might be picked up first for his products or services or booked for an influencer campaign. Now, I usually look at the whole picture when we're working with influencers. We don't just look at one thing. But regardless, you need to be very focused on your brand authority and how to build that up. So the how of building your brand authority. Well, one way is to leverage your experience by showcasing case studies and testimonials on social media and your website. Who does this regularly? Awesome, very good. And you do, so this goes back to the following situation. You do want to grow your social media following on relevant social platforms to your target audience through quality content and engagement. I'm going to say it once, and only once because I only have 6 minutes and 9 seconds left. Do not buy fake followers. For the love of all things holy, do not buy fake followers. Please don't do it. If you're really struggling and you're like so inclined after this talk or after this event to be like, I really just want followers, screw it. I don't care what that chick up there said with the love t-shirt. I'm gonna buy like 100,000 fake followers right now. Don't do it. Like, I'd rather offer you a complimentary consultation for 30 minutes and actually give you some specific advice as it relates to you than like find out that some person has decided to like arbitrarily and impulsively buy fake followers. People do it all the time. Big companies do it. Don't be fooled. They do. But what happens, a lot of people want to get those followers so they can do the swipe up. You can only swipe up on Instagram with 10K or more. But like, imagine if you're swiping up to nothing but like Russian bots. Are they going to buy from you? Are they going to care about what you're doing? No. I think not. So when you're creating content, it doesn't matter what you do, who you are, you always want to remember the power of threes. I talk about the power of threes a lot. I talk about it in coaching. I talk about it when I'm consulting. I talk about it everywhere. The power of threes is kind of when you're remembering to post a solid mix of motivational, educational, and promotional content. You don't want to only do the promotional content. Remember, it's going to wear your audience out. You're going to be exploiting them. If all you're doing is being like, buy my product now, buy my product every single post, like seriously, no, don't do it. Remember, reach into your secret sauce and your unique expertise, provide education, provide value, and also remember to provide motivational content. Think about your unique story and what makes you you. Think about that. Harness that. That's motivational content. Any content that actually will create an emotional connection in your audience is motivational content. Educational content is much more intellectual and focused. So you want to be aware of the fact that when you're creating educational content, it's more about showcasing your expertise, and in turn, you're going to build your brand authority. So you want to also collaborate with other influencers. Don't get caught up in that word. Remember, as I mentioned before, that word has been co-opted to mean something it is not. Just anyone that you think has influence in their community, maybe they only have 1,000 followers. We're working with Gold's Gym right now on an influencer campaign, a Gold's franchise specifically in Richmond, Virginia. So do you think I would find an influencer in, I don't know, New York with like 500,000 followers for a Richmond, Virginia-based Gold's Gym franchise? Absolutely not. Makes no sense. It's not going to have any ROI. So instead, we're looking at nano-influencers in Richmond who have maybe 1,000 to 1,500 followers or so, and being like, okay, this person's a fitness influencer. They're going to actually hit up the gym and want to create a relationship with Gold's. You want to also, when you're working with influencers, you're going to co-create content together, offer to interview them for your blog or your vlog, or also on IG or Facebook Lives. Remember, IG is Instagram. Not going to be ageist, I'm just saying. So co-host a masterclass or workshop. Leverage each other's respective social followings. So when I say the latter point, sometimes you'll find someone on YouTube who has like 100,000 subscribers, but then maybe on Instagram they have like 5,000. And maybe on Instagram you have 20,000. So it's like, okay, let's cross-promote, because they're going to obviously gain the value from the fact that you have a bigger IG following and they have a bigger YouTube following. So it kind of goes back and forth, so it's reflexive in that sense. Do JV masterclasses and workshops. So JV is joint venture. Find people to collaborate with, co-host events with them, have fun with it. At the end of the day, all of this stuff comes down to having fun, enjoy yourself. I used to be really, really insecure, you guys, like probably 5 years ago. Like I would never do this because I would be like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Even in my acting years, like I was so insecure. I was like a mess. It's just, which is super ironic. It's like now that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm way more like in touch with all of these different things. Like I mentioned earlier, my humanity, my fallibilities, my strengths. I am much more confident. You just have to kind of let yourself go at some point. And that's also what being an influencer is about. It's about being authentic. So start a private Slack channel or Facebook group. I personally believe that Facebook groups are super oversaturated now. But obviously there's a lot of people on Facebook, so by all means. But if you want something a little more intimate, think about doing Slack. Emily Weiss, the founder of Glossier that I mentioned earlier, she had a private Slack channel for her top customers. So it was a way for her to incentivize people to buy and to be a regular customer, because obviously they would get the reward of being able to engage with her and other VIPs. So that's an idea as well. But you can take the Slack channel in any direction. I'm a member personally of so many Slack channels. It's kind of ridiculous. Way too many Facebook groups too. Guests contribute to well-read blogs. You don't want to hold yourself back. Now again, like obviously you're going to be just getting started with this whole thing potentially, or maybe you've been in the game for a little bit, but don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I've seen this on your platform, but you don't have this, I can offer it to you. And secure press by doing press-worthy stuff. No one deserves press just because. We're in a society and a time now where people think they can just buy in to being on Entrepreneur Magazine. I do PR as well. It's just ridiculous, you guys. Like no one deserves to be in PR, an entrepreneur, Forbes, just because. You have to do something press-worthy. It's just the way it goes. Like keep it real. It's not that hard. And don't ever forget that without empathy, you will always fall short. You want to have empathy for yourself, empathy for your audience, empathy for everybody. Empathy is so important. If you don't know how to get yourself in your potential customers' shoes, or in your audience's shoes, you're just going to fall short in the end. So I'm running out of time, so I'm just gonna push through this. You can support and find your potential customer, by the way, by targeted hashtag searches on Instagram. A lot of folks don't know this or think about this. As an example, I was working with an addiction coach. I told him to search the hashtag recovering addict because he didn't know how to find his target audience. And sure enough, there's probably over 60,000 posts under that hashtag, and I said, why don't you just find people and leave them a motivational comment? Obviously people who are overcoming addiction are going through a lot, and just provide them something that makes them feel good. They're probably going to remember you for that. You just never know what their day is like. Create surveys using Google Forms to get a clear idea as to your customers' pain points. Find them on Facebook groups. find them in social media, and send them the Google form. But usually you should offer something in exchange for doing that. Obviously, people don't owe you their time. And remember, it all comes down to psychology and kindness. As you grow your following, you don't want to forget that you're building relationships at scale, okay? So it's not just having followers for the sake of followers, it's growing a community and remembering that as you amass a larger following, you still have to maintain a relationship with everybody. Obviously, it's impossible to do this on a very minute level if you have a large following, but just remember to stop treating your audience as something to use and make money off only. Okay? If you want your following to be real and not fluff, this is something you have to remember. So whoever and wherever you are now, you guys all have the potential to be an influencer. Just remember the 3 key pillars and remember to have empathy, because love and empathy is ultimately what social influence is all about. Thank you guys so much. Y'all go eat some food. I know you're hungry. Thank you so much. Oh, okay.
Woo! Put your hands together for Nadia.
Thank you.
So, that was great.
Your life is what you make of it. Learn, live, love. This is Nadia's Entrepreneurial Corner.